Beneath the rolling prairie of the Black Hills lies a cave that breathes. Air pours in and out of its narrow mouth like the lungs of the earth, and its dark passages are lined with a delicate stone lattice found almost nowhere else on the planet. To one people, this is not a curiosity but the most sacred of places, the very doorway through which their ancestors first walked into the world. Welcome to Wind Cave National Park. We are in the southern Black Hills of western South Dakota, about 10 miles north of the town of Hot Springs. Above ground, the park is a sea of mixed grass prairie and ponderosa pine, roamed by bison and prairie dogs. But its true wonder lies below, in one of the longest and most complex cave systems on Earth. The cave takes its name from its most startling trait. At its natural entrance, wind rushes in or out with surprising force, sometimes strong enough to snatch a hat. The cave is simply equalizing pressure, breathing in when the air outside grows heavy and out when it lightens, so that the mouth of Wind Cave inhales and exhales with the passing weather, a living, breathing opening in the ground. Inside waits a marvel. The cave's walls and ceilings are covered in boxwork, a fragile honeycomb of thin calcite fins that jut out like the cells of a hive. It forms when softer rock dissolves away and leaves harder mineral veins behind, and it is extraordinarily rare. An astonishing 95% of all the boxwork ever discovered on Earth is found right here, in this one cave. And there is so much of it. Explorers have mapped well over 150 miles of passages folded into a few square miles of rock, a three-dimensional labyrinth so dense it is among the most complex caves in the world. Yet the cave breathes so strongly that scientists believe only a fraction of it has been found. Most of Wind Cave is still unknown, waiting in the dark. Long before any surveyor, the Lakota knew this breathing hole and held it sacred. They called it Washun Niya, understood as the breathing earth or the wind that breathes, a place of deep spiritual power at the very heart of their world. To walk here is to walk in one of the holiest sites of the northern plains. For this cave sits at the center of the Lakota story of creation. In their oral tradition, it was through this very opening that the first people emerged from the world below into the light, led by the first man, Dakota. And from this same cave, the story tells, came the first buffalo, spilling out onto the prairie. Wind Cave is, quite literally, a birthplace. The hills that hold the cave are themselves sacred. The Lakota call them Paha Sapa, the Black Hills, and know them as the heart of everything that is, the center of their spiritual universe. These dark, pine-covered mountains rising from the plains were, and are, a place of vision and pilgrimage. And it was that very sacredness, and the riches beneath, that would make them the object of one of history's great betrayals. In 1868, the United States signed the Treaty of Fort Laramie, solemnly recognizing the Black Hills as part of the Great Sioux Reservation, set aside for the Lakota forever. For a few short years, the sacred hills were, on paper, protected and their own. It was a promise that would not survive the decade. In 1874, an army expedition led by George Custer marched into the Forbidden Hills and returned with word of gold. The news set off a stampede. Thousands of prospectors poured illegally into the Black Hills, and the government, unwilling to hold them back, turned instead to taking the land it had just promised away forever. By 1877, in the aftermath of war on the plains, the United States seized the Black Hills outright, breaking the treaty it had signed only 9 years before. The theft of Paha Sapa has never been accepted by the Lakota, who to this day decline a court-ordered payment and ask instead for the sacred hills themselves. This is the contested ground on which our cave sits. The settlers found the cave by its breath. In 1881, the story goes, two brothers named Bingham were riding across the prairie when a roar of wind from a hole in the rocks blew the hat clean off one of their heads. Word spread of the strange breathing hole, and a place the Lakota had always known became, to the newcomers, a brand new discovery. Its first great explorer was barely more than a boy. In the early 1890s, a teenager named Alvin McDonald spent countless hours crawling by candlelight into the unmapped dark, naming rooms and stringing twine to find his way back, keeping a careful diary of his discoveries. He died tragically young, but his passion first revealed the wonder of Wind Cave to the world. On the 3rd of January, 1903, President Theodore Roosevelt signed Wind Cave into being as a national park. It was only the 6th national park in the country, and the very first anywhere in the world created to protect a cave. A sacred breathing hole in the prairie had become a treasure held in trust for everyone. The park protects far more than the cave. On the surface spreads one of the finest stretches of mixed-grass prairie left in America, where tallgrass and shortgrass meet, stitched with islands of ponderosa pine climbing the hills. It is a rare surviving glimpse of the vast grassland ocean that once rolled unbroken across the heart of the continent. And across that prairie moved the buffalo. Hunted to near extinction, bison were brought back to Wind Cave in 1913, and today a wild herd once more grazes the grass above the cave from which, the Lakota say, the first of them came. Pronghorn, elk, and whole towns of chattering prairie dogs share the plain, a living prairie restored. So this one place holds an entire world. A breathing cave of impossible stone, a sacred site of emergence, a stolen and still contested homeland, and a restored prairie thundering with the return of the buffalo. Few square miles anywhere carry so much wonder and so much weight above and below the ground. A cave that breathes, a doorway of creation, sacred hills taken and never forgotten, and the buffalo come home to the prairie above. Thank you for watching. Follow for more interesting people, places, and things we cover on the channel.